Welcome to my first custom making colors for the zodiac signs. So I actually did one of these videos last year, and I used a mix that was already actually done from Arctic Fox for Pisces because I am a Pisces, and the mix was for my birthday. So this year I had the same idea. I kind of wanted to do the same thing, but instead of doing mixes that other brands and stuff have done, I thought maybe it'd be fun if I mixed my own colors. So I decided to go with lunar tides because they already have that planetary vibe to them, and the planets obviously play a very big role in astrology. So I felt like it was a good fit, especially because they have a good range of colors as well. And I actually wanted this to go up on my birthday, or at least my birthday week. But then when I decided I wanted to do all the zodiac signs, I realized it would be too close to Aries. And so I decided to post this the week that Pisces season actually begins instead of doing it for my birthday. So for Pisces, we're going to be mixing together Lunar Tides Blue Velvet with their Beetle Green. So for at least this round, I do hope to do this again in the future. But this round of zodiac signs, I wanted to go with the more traditional colors that are associated with each sign. So I wanted to do a bluish green. And I originally wanted to do Beetle Green mixed with Cerulean Sea, especially because the name Cerulean Sea, it works out, it's cute. But after I made my Beetle Green video, I realized that Beetle Green is actually much more green than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be slightly more bluish green, but no. I had to then kind of rethink my decision. And to me, Pisces is an ocean. So I wanted to keep some depth. And that's why I decided to go with Blue Velvet, mixing the blue and the green together. Beetle Green, even though it is pretty green, it's still more closer to a cool tone green. So I feel like mixing them together, at least I'm hoping, will give us maybe a mid-tone version of Cerulean Sea. Cerulean Sea is very dark and pigmented, which is very beautiful, but I wanted something that wasn't quite that dark. So I have my swatches labeled 1 through 10, but that's not synonymous with hair levels. I'll be doing close-ups, pictures at the end of the video and stuff. So each number helps us just to keep track of each swatch. They are human hair swatches, but they are not all virgin hair. Really the only one that is virgin hair is the number 2 swatch. The rest have been chemically dyed or bleached at some point in their existence. So 1 is gray, 2 is black, and then from 2 to 9 we have a range that goes to platinum blonde, and then number 10 is a toned version of number 9. And for this mix in particular, I'm gonna try to do a more bluish look on the top and then slightly more green at the bottom. So the top will probably be darker and the bottom will be lighter. And so I'll start with the top, and for that ratio, it's going to be a 5-to-1 ratio. That is 5 parts of Beetle Green to 1 part Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet is very, very pigmented. Pisces season, I guess you would say, starts roughly between the dates of February 18th and ends around March 19th. But that does vary each year. If you're born around either of those dates and you're not really sure what your sun sign is and you have your birth time, I would recommend or encourage you to go to a website like astro.com, which is what I've used in the past, to get a birth chart, or otherwise known as a natal chart, done for yourself that will tell you what your sign is. Astrology is actually very mathematical and degrees are very important. So actually, you could be born on the same day as someone else. Say someone is born in the beginning of the day and you're born at the end of the day. You could be 2 completely different sun signs just because of the time you were born at. This year, 2021, Pisces season begins February 18th around 4:44 in the morning, Central Standard Time, which is my time. So that actually lines up with what I was saying. If somebody who was born at midnight on February 18th is an Aquarius, and anyone born, if you're born at 5 a.m. on February 18th this year, then you would be Pisces. Very cool. So for the second mixture, it's going to sound like a lot, but we're doing a 12-to-1 ratio. So that is 12 parts of Beetle Green to 1 part Blue Velvet. And to me, this mixture, from what I can tell at the moment, is a lot closer to the color I was aiming for, and just shows just how pigmented the Blue Velvet really is. So I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that your zodiac signs tend to be associated with the same colors all the time, and not everyone really understands why. So I thought in each video maybe I'd go through the reason why. I'm not an astrologer just like I'm not a hairstylist or a hair colorist. But, you know, once you've dabbled in things for a long enough time, you start to know some things. So I thought I'd go through and explain the reasoning. So if you're Pisces, you've probably noticed that you're often associated with blues and like bluish greens. Not only is Pisces represented by the two fish, but it is a water sign, which I think is the main explanation, the combo of it being a fish and a water sign that gives these associations. But Pisces is also ruled by Neptune, at least in modern astrology. In traditional astrology, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. But I feel like if we're talking color, Pisces being ruled by Neptune is a little bit more relevant just because Neptune is the Roman god of the sea. So it makes sense that, you know, all the blues and the bluish greens come in for Pisces. Now, on the off chance that this does turn out like Cerulean Sea, the cool thing with doing custom mixes like this is that you can adjust the colors. So if you want it to be more blue, you just add more blue. If you want it to be more green, you just add more green. All right, I'm gonna let these sit for about 3 hours. I will then rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here and we can do some comparisons. I am super excited. This is pretty much exactly what I imagined. I will say the bottom half here is closer to what I was imagining for the Pisces color, but I do feel like both this and this are very Pisces looking. In terms of the more blue velvet section on top, I can see a difference starting at number 5. There is a slight difference on number 4 too, but I feel like you can really see it more on number 5. But I think I prefer it on 8 through 10, and then obviously the gray one as well. And then the one with a little bit more beetle green, you can see a difference on number 5. But again, I like the more blonder swatches. And especially on the platinum blonde one, I like a lot. As usual, the number 1 gray swatch just looks slightly more cool toned, but only slightly in this case. And then if you have red hair and you're wondering about this, I've noticed that my natural red swatches usually turn out kind of like 5 or 6. With my mix videos, I like to not do a random color because usually my number 1 is a fun colored hair swatch, and I also like to keep my swatches on even numbers, so I have 10. So that's why I took out the natural red swatch, but if you are wondering, it would probably look kind of like these. So for comparisons, I did want to look at Cerulean Sea from Lunar Tides. I was worried that this would end up looking like that, so let's compare it and see. This is comparable to number 10. This is comparable to number 9. And this is comparable to number 8. So initially, Cerulean Sea is obviously a lot darker by itself. And Blue Velvet is pretty dark too, but because I had to add so much beetle green so you could even see the green, it definitely lightens up the color as well. So, you know, if you did like this but you wanted it to be darker, Cerulean Sea is definitely a good option. To me, the Cerulean Sea Diluted looks a little bit closer to this. Alright, so I went ahead and flipped them upside down so we could see the diluted section in comparison, and my mixture on top still looks darker, but I'm assuming if you were to dilute Cerulean Sea just a little less than I did here, you'd probably get a close color to this. But like I said earlier in the video, the nice thing about doing custom mixes is that if you don't want it to be quite as green, you can just add less beetle green and it'll be still mostly blue with just a hint of green. So my advice, I guess, is if you have darker hair, I would suggest just using the Cerulean Sea. But if you have lighter hair, you have a little bit more options. I know Lunar Tides has another dye called Sea Witch, and to me, it looks a little bit lighter on the website, but I haven't used that one yet. So if it does happen to come out more like this bottom half, when I do it, of course, I will compare that. But from what I've seen, the bottom half mixture is a little bit more unique based off of the colors that Lunar Tides already has existing. Because even in the Cerulean Sea, you can just see that there's a tad bit more blue in the Cerulean Sea. I wouldn't quite say that this bottom half is minty, but it's kind of leaning on that edge. It's like a dark minty green almost, or even like a dark seafoam green. The other comparison I wanted to do today is Lime Crime in the color Sea Witch. So this is comparable to number 10, number 9, and number 8. So the Sea Witch does run just a slightly more green than the Cerulean Sea, so I do feel like this is also a good comparison. So I used to do two separate diluted parts, and that's why the swatches look like that. So the top half is the direct dye, and then these two parts are diluted and then diluted even more. So on the 9 and 10 swatch, the top I think still holds a little bit more blue compared to both the direct dye and the slightly more diluted section. But then as you dilute the Sea Witch even more, it's still, like, it does look slightly more green, but in comparison to my mixture with more Beetle green, the bottom half of my Pisces mixture looks just a hair more green. Especially on these swatches, I feel like the toned swatch holds the blue a lot better. And then for the direct dye portion, it does still run slightly darker, but not quite as dark as the Cerulean Sea. My Pisces mixture on the top is just a little bit lighter. So for my two closest comparisons that I remember, at least, the bottom half of my Pisces mixture is still a little bit more unique. It seems like the greenish blues that I have all run just slightly more blue, but if you like that, you now know similar colors. So now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. I do film those in natural lighting, so I'm sure, as you know, recreating the exact same environment on two separate days can be difficult with natural lighting. So if anything looks slightly off, that is probably why. Even though we did find colors that are pretty similar to my Pisces mix, I still had a lot of fun planning it out and trying to figure out the best combination. I had, for each sign, I actually have a kind of long list of different possible combinations I want to do, but I decided for my first cycle, I wanted to keep the colors a little bit closer to the typical colors, and maybe my next cycle, I'll start branching out, because in my mind, Pisces is also kind of like purples as well. But yeah, like I said, I have them all planned out, so if you want to try and predict, Aries is going to be the next in line. That should come out in March, the week of or the week after Aries season begins. In my opinion, Aries is going to be pretty obvious, but if you want to try and take a guess, feel free in the comments below. It's nice to be able to incorporate multiple things that I like on my YouTube channel, even though it's a little embarrassing to admit. I'm very into astrology, so it's nice to have a little bit more creative freedom. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.